Andy Burde, welcome to the podcast, my friend. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, doing well.
Dude, it's so good to see you again. I want to give the listeners a little bit of background because we ran into each other. I don't know. It's probably been like 6 months now. Time flies.
Yes.
Has it been 6 months already?
Yeah, probably more.
I think it has been. Well, Andy is a young entrepreneur. I'm going to let him tell his journey here in a minute. But I actually reached out to a bunch of different young entrepreneurs to see if I could help in sort of supporting young business owners in the journey of success and seeing how we can all work together to remove obstacles. And Andy was like one of the first ones that responded to me. And we ended up not actually building a small group, but him and I have stayed connected. And I really wanted him to be part of the podcast today because he does have a really interesting journey. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs, high achievers, everyone to kind of hear his story because it is so off the beaten path. And I think that nowadays we're often taught to think about career or how to make money in a box, go to school, get a job, blah, blah, blah. Like there's a path. And Andy defies all of those paths, and he has found success in his own little business. And I shouldn't say it's a little business, but he's been able to really achieve some really great success at a young age. And I just thought you could come on the podcast and share your story and share your lessons. And I know people are going to learn from it. So welcome to the podcast, my brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to be on here. And yeah, definitely kind of took a different path, but always just learning and building. I think that's the key to entrepreneurship, and so building better products and just making things better. And I think that's the one thing that I'm still stuck at is, what problems do I solve for the society to make it a better place? And I think everyone kind of falls into that. And so, I think
not everybody falls into it, but let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about, you decided that I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to leave high school, and you did a lot of traveling. So tell us a little bit about that and your upbringing. You decided not to go to college and go straight from high school into entrepreneurship and start a business. Tell us a little bit about the mindset that you had really early on. I think, and I'm going to ask you this question also is, are entrepreneurs built or are they born? And I think that you have some instinctual things in your personality that make you just want to take risk and want to have, want to serve the world and build big things. And you're a really ambitious kid. So tell me about that early stage stuff. Let's go there first.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in the same town as you. In
Irvine, California, baby. Woo!
Irvine, California.
Shout out to Irvine.
And when I was a kid, my dad got a job actually in Hong Kong. So I moved there for 3 years. And I think that was a quite impactful time of my life. I was 12 years old and, was living in a foreign city, going to international school. And when you're an expat, all your family, friends, and kind of that circle are, I think, high achievers. And you see that with, all the different dads being investment bankers and doing deals and being a real estate. And you kind of see that. And my dad actually wasn't really a big businessman. He's in textiles. He's a sales guy. And we ended up in Hong Kong, and we weren't really in that crew of investment bankers and high net worth individuals and families. And I think I saw that and said, wow, this is a totally different part of the world that I didn't see in life, and, a stratosphere that I'm like, wow, this is out there. And, it's not just in the movies. And looking at that, that really inspired me to say, hey, like, what is it to be a owner of something and to actually, solve problems, not be someone who's a wage slave, but who's just working at a company and getting by and not really thinking about the work they're doing. And I think that really propelled me after that, and went to middle school and high school back here in Irvine and said, wow, I want to get into business. I want to make change or impact on the world. College is something that maybe is not necessary. And I looked at that in a way because, a lot of people said to me growing up, hey, if you want to learn business, just do it. And I remember, selling gum in the school, packets of gum and packs of Skittles for $1. I buy them at Costco and, make 50 cents on the pack. But still, it was just a little bit of kind of this learning experience of get out there and just try it and not take anything too seriously. And I think, since then, it's really built up to just starting small and just trying a lot of different stuff out. And I think, to answer your question, are entrepreneurs built or, are they born? I think a little bit of both. I think you have to be born with this drive and kind of this willingness to put yourself out there and want to have positive change in the world. But at the same time, I don't think it's a skill that you can't learn. Like you can't not learn how to sell products, like dial the phone and call people. And maybe like the first 10 times are going to be totally crap and no one's going to answer you. But I think after a while, you kind of get used to it and then you learn. So I don't think there's this inability to learn how to do it. I think that kind of first initial step is always the hardest though. And growing to Irvine, it's so safe here and it's kind of this little bubble. I used to always want to get out of it, but now being a little bit older, not old at all, but just a little bit older, I'm looking at this like, oh, wow, it's a really good place to actually live and be able to think about the bigger problems in society that will hopefully in the future, drive positive change. Because I think, finding those problems and trying to fix those problems are the key. And I think really pinpointing those problems though is really hard. Like how do you find those areas that provide value to the world? I think that's a little bit difficult, but you got to start small. And Well,
what I love, and what really inspires me about you and your journey and spending time with you is like, having that mindset at such a young age and just sort of throwing yourself at it, I should say, is something that's, not very many people are brave enough to do. And I think why I wanted to have you on the podcast today is that I think there's a lot of people maybe are thinking about doing that or feel like they have something inside them calling them to do something bigger, and maybe they're stuck in their, job or stuck in college, unhappy or whatever, that, if you're really seeing something or being called to something that is bigger than you, like just throw yourself at it. And you may not know enough, you may not have enough experience, you may not have the education, what have you, but there are problems to solve that we all have. That, that's how businesses get started, is we're all trying to solve a problem that perhaps somebody else is not solving. So I really admire that about you, for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I talk to a lot of people about this specifically, like, hey, I really want to do something and I don't know what it is, but I want to do something on my own. Like, I don't want to work at this company anymore, or I feel like I'm just meant to do bigger things. And the big piece of advice I always give people is just try it out. Like, just get your foot, just dip your toes in the water. Like, just try it and see where it goes. Because to be quite frank, like our business that we have right now, when we started, it was an idea of having a distributorship, importing products from Asia and selling products here online. And it turned into this plant business and it's doing okay. And I would have never thought about doing plants, but like, I don't think I ever would have got here without taking that first initial step of, hey, let's buy stuff from China and sell it online on Amazon and see what
let's try
happens.
something.
Exactly. Let's try something. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Tell us about, you are, from an age perspective, not from an experience perspective, from an age perspective, you are a young entrepreneur. And I think that the reason why I highlight that is in my own journey, I also experience a lot of age prejudice. And in being a young entrepreneur, you need to make deals, you need to make things happen, you need to work with suppliers and customers and banks, and you got to get things done. And there is a little bit of age bias that exists out there. Tell me a little bit about how you overcame that, what you experienced. Was there anything at all there that perhaps you learned from or overcame?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I think in business in general, I think people are ageist, and the older I become, the more ageist I become too, because you're just saying, you didn't really go through that, or they don't really understand. And I mean, I totally get it. And I remember, like before when we first started, I couldn't rent a car. And we were staying at the crappiest motels. And
that's how young this guy is, guys. Just to know, if you want to look it up, how old you need to be. Just to be clear, it's like 25 years old to rent a car. That's how young this guy was when he started. So fun.
Yeah. And then you go to the banks and, they're asking, what does your dad do? And you're really tied in with your family at that point.
Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely affects you, but I think it also makes you a little bit stronger, because then you are able to learn how to kind of block that, I think, and say, hey, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're trying to solve a problem, or you have an idea of an industry and you know it better than other people, and it works out that way. I think, on the contrary, I think being young can be good as well, because
that's right.
I mean, I could tell you right now, like the business really took off at nights, like when I'm able to just keep working away after dinner or something, and I don't have family, I don't have, a significant other I got to take care of, and you can really just start getting into it deeply at night and just testing stuff that you would never even think about, but you just kind of get into it and start thinking about it, I think, in a different way. And I think your energy level is a little bit different too, where, you're like, I don't care if I work 14 hours a day, but now I'm thinking, it's kind of nice to be able to take, go out to dinner and then, come home and watch a movie and like relax for the night, which is something that I think when you're 21, 22, you're totally good skipping. Totally.
You're totally good just grinding through it.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned, or what maybe the most painful lessons you've learned in trying to build your business?
It's a great question. I would say cash flow. So
cash flow, tell us more.
Similar to your business, I think, you didn't have a lot of outside investors. And being young, I don't think, you can go out there and get VC funds nowadays, but, you're giving up a lot, I think, at that point. But cash flow has been tough because you need cash to run the business, buy the stuff, have payroll going, make sure you don't skip that. And when you start with very little money, I think that is on your mind all the time. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's probably like the one thing that keeps me awake all the time is cash flow. Is like, hey, is there enough money in the bank to pay the employees? Is there money in the bank to pay the rent, the ERP system, and have it all going? And sometimes it's kind of like, wow, like this thing is going and it's strong. And you wouldn't really think that. Like, I think sometimes you get carried away and think, oh, wow, it could go south very quickly.
Well, I think most entrepreneurs, in my perspective, I think most entrepreneurs get super excited about their business and in their business, right? And don't often think about, do we have enough cash in the bank to run every single day until you have those problems. One of the things that I find is super important is you have to make sure that you're really well capitalized. And I think they don't really teach us that when we're starting, because you just have an idea and you have a couple of people who believe in your idea and you're just running as fast as you can. And as you're growing, you need capital. As you're selling, you need capital. As you're building inventory, you need capital. And all of those things, as you're hiring and growing, you need capital, right? And so all of those things need cash. And learning how to be well capitalized for that sort of that journey and have a little bit of landing pad just in case you miss is super important. But
that is very true.
We don't talk enough about cash flow management in entrepreneurship and making sure we are well capitalized. We just talk about the idea and the people and the wealth and the blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But like, I know 40-year-old companies that are going out of business right now because they couldn't make it 1 or 2 quarters because of cash flow. And that's a huge disappointment.
Yeah. And I think I used to put way too much emphasis on the top line revenue.
Right.
And I think that it even happens to my friends, who have companies, and it's like, wow, we did, $1 million this month, or we did $2 million this month. It's like, okay, but what's your profit? Oh yeah, we're down like 10%. It's like, well, what's happening? And, are you able to, is that something that you're investing in that you can grow in the future? Or is it something that's wrong with your margins? for us, we ran into that where our top line was growing exponential amount, but our profitability was actually shrinking. And it's like, okay, what's happening? And that was a big eye opener. It's not all about top line profit. It might be cool to be able to go to the bank and say, yeah, I did whatever, how many millions in revenue, but it's all about the net profit.
But there's no money in the bank. I need to loan money. It is the number one mistake most entrepreneurs get caught up, because it's a sexy thing. Being an entrepreneur is sexy nowadays. And it is. The number one trap that people make is focusing on the wrong numbers and not focusing on the right things, right? If you're not making money, you're not in business, right? The business is there to serve a purpose. It is not your ego. And most people get into business to build a top line, to talk about the top line. That's all ego based. It has nothing to do with the performance of your business. And if you're not making money and you're not sustainable, then whatever mission or whatever you're trying to solve, you're not going to survive to go see it, right? So it's a super important lesson.
Yeah. And I think and also to add on that, like, I think it's really easy to get caught up in that VC world of San Francisco and Silicon Valley, where, they're like, I think on the other podcast, I think it's like the All In podcast, they were talking about a company that was burning, I think, $10 million a month or something crazy like that. And for the whole year, they brought in $100K in revenue. And, you look at that, it's like, what the heck? And they brag about how much they raised, but at the end of the day, they're not bringing in any revenue. It kind of puts this, I guess, false persona of a business. Like, it's not really generating anything. It's a sexy business model that VC can get behind and pump up the valuation. But really, what does that do when the company has to close down in a year? So I think it's easy to get caught up in that and be like, yeah, we want to be worth this much, and $1 billion valuation with $100 million yearly revenue. But how realistic is that, and what kind of partners do you have in that, and is that really sustainable? I think a lot of it isn't. And we've gone through this kind of bubbly stage of startups in the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, I think.
What did you learn most about yourself in this process? What did you learn about yourself that perhaps even you didn't expect in yourself or about yourself?
I
mean, you always had this sort of tenacity. You're a hungry kid. I should stop calling you a kid. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No,
but you're a young guy, and you're ambitious. You're hungry. I'm sure you had enough confidence that you would figure it out, but like, what blindsided you?
I think it's like being realistic about the company and revenue and profits, because you hear about these companies that make, let's say, $10 million in revenue a year, but they're valued at 500 million or something crazy number like that. And I think it really I was on the moon before. I was like just totally in space thinking, wow, if I just build something, just multiply that by 10 and that's my company valuation. And, it doesn't.
The world does not work that way. For all the listeners, that is not the real world. That is maybe a very small percentage of companies.
Tiny percentage of companies. And I think those companies told a really good story. And some of them really do that, but I think a majority of them aren't able to do what they've set out to do.
Yep.
In those moonshot projects and stuff. But to be honest, I think it was a very humbling experience. I think I came into the entrepreneur world with like a totally egotistical person, never meditated, was all about me. Like, I want to be a billionaire. Let's do it. And then kind of getting into it. Yeah, well, let's be more realistic, because if I don't be realistic, this company's going to go away and there won't be this. And it won't be a good time. And I think being realistic about things is really what happened. And that's for a positive, I think.
Yeah. It teaches you humility.
Humility. Yes. I think that's a perfect word for it.
Tell me about, I think as entrepreneurs, we also experience some imposter syndrome. And even at a young age, I know I experienced this for a while. until I sort of started doing some of this more deeper work and more self-reflective work of like, what am I doing and why am I doing what I'm doing? But like, as you hire employees, entrepreneurs have to put on this face of confidence and strength. And even when you're perhaps losing money or trying to grow and you don't know what you're doing, you feel like an imposter. Did you experience that with your journey as you were growing, or perhaps as you were employing people or driving strategy?
Yeah, I think that happens to everyone in every aspect of life, right? Like just trying to fit in, trying to say, yeah, I like it, but do you actually really like it? I think it happens everywhere, and it definitely happened to me. But I don't know if you know Ray Dalio, he wrote books on principles about, yeah. And the principles book really hit me, I think. I still read it time to time. And I think the big point that he brought across was radical honesty and meaningful relationships. But the radical honesty part for me really hit, because I think that's what I have brought into our company culture. And I can see it work, because there's nothing bad that can come out of telling the truth, I think.
Love it.
And in every aspect of life, and no matter how hard it is to say, just saying it and just say, hey, this is what we're thinking. And I think in the book, he talks about, an example of the accounting team getting audited, and then people saying, hey, no, we should actually just fire the accounting team and bring in a third party company to do the accounting. And instead of kind of internalizing this and talking to the executives about what to do, he decided, hey, let's go to the accounting team and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. We're actually thinking about firing everyone here and bringing in this other team. And I think that's like a way of radical transparency, because like, who would actually do that? Who would go up to someone and say, hey, we're actually thinking about firing you. We're going to bring someone else to do the work. But when he did that, like, the input he got from the accounting team was incredible. And I've noticed that with just little other examples that I've done, that, hey, like when you're just really radically transparent, they're transparent too. And they say, hey, I actually, we might have to get rid of your position. Well, they'll go like, hey, to be honest with you, I've been looking at other positions. And that kind of transparency is like, wow, like how come we haven't been talking about this? There's this wall that people kind of put up. And how do we break that? Like, let's just be radically transparent with everyone. And I wish I could see that in the world more, but that's kind of what we're trying to instill into the company, and trying to be, radically transparent, because I think that's huge in business decisions and life decisions, and living with people and pretty much every aspect of life.
That was really powerful. I think people don't understand that actually this conversation creates safety. And when people don't talk about these things as openly, we'll just stay focused on company culture for a minute. And I love what you just said there, and you have evidence of it, is that often people don't talk about these things so openly in companies because they're afraid, or they feel safe by not talking about it, or I'll just be quiet and sit in my corner and see how long I need to go, or I don't need to address my employee until I need to replace them. That doesn't create safety. That does not create cohesiveness. Actually, the ripping off the Band-Aid, doing the opposite, is what's creating safety and harmony. And it's a common misconception that truth and sort of facing these challenges can create an open dialogue and transparency with the culture. I love that example. Yeah, so much so. And I mean, talk about culture. I think culture is like one of the most important parts about scaling a business. And I think that like transparency and meaningful relationships through that book, I mean, it just hits so hard. It's like, that is really the fundamentals of culture, I think. Obviously there's other stuff to add to that, but I think those two key aspects really do make a difference. So besides principles, what else are you reading right now that the listener can go dig into?
Right now I'm reading Deep Work by Cal Newport.
I have not read that, right? But I hear it's amazing.
Yes. I just, I kind of just started it, and just trying to understand, hey, you have these limited hours of the day that you're able to be so, I don't know the word, in the work. Like you can really go deep. So that's something that I think people don't really understand. I think is like you have those limited 2 to 3, 4 hours of the day that you're just full competency. Like the best decisions are going to come out of you. The other times, it's kind of hard to be super deep in the work, or you're thinking about other stuff, or you're kind of getting antsy, you want to go work out, and it kind of changes the dynamic of work. But how Cal Newport talks about it, that deep work that you are able to put in 2, 3, 4 hours a day, that's where the change can happen, because that's where you can really excel and push agendas forward. And yeah, it's interesting for sure.
I love it. Tell us about, as a high performer, you're running your business, you're trying to continuously grow and achieve. What is your daily routine that helps you achieve that level of performance?
A good night's rest.
Of course.
Yeah. Meditation. I think, Ashish, you're into meditation, right? That's something that I got my brother got me into it actually through the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. And I do that daily. I mean, it just makes you kind of aware of the surroundings, and just a lot more in tune with your thoughts. And if you have negative feelings, like, you kind of bring that up and address it. So that's big. Another big one I kind of recently started is MCT oil in the coffee with like mushroom supplements. That's been cool. And I started it like 3-4 weeks ago, and I just felt so clear after drinking it. Now I do it every day, and I'm like, oh, this could be something to keep in the routine. Yeah,
bulletproof coffee or bulletproof mud water. People should look into it. Maybe we'll put some links in the. But MCT oil helps the connections in your brain, because the brain is operating from fat, and when you wake up in the morning, you don't consume. You're breakfasting, right? You're fasting all night, so your brain actually lacks fats and hydration, which is why they tell you wake up in the morning and drink water. But the MCT oil actually really goes straight to the brain and allows you to burn fats at a slower pace in the brain. And so it's really, really good for the brain. And I don't remember I forget the founder now that I'm thinking about it. I forgot the name of the guy who founded Bulletproof Coffee, but yeah, really highly recommend that to everybody. So I'm glad you found it, bro.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I was surprised how clear I was thinking right after drinking it. You can really tell the difference. I was actually really tell the difference.
And it's a simple, natural biohack. It's MCT oil, for the listener, is just coconut oil, basically.
Right. Yeah. And I remember buying at Sprouts down the street, and just put like a teaspoon in the coffee.
Exactly.
Espresso shot in the morning. It's fantastic.
So what's, as we wrap up here, I have a couple more questions to close up, but like, what's next for Andy? What's the future hold for Andy?
Tech forward is what we're saying. We're looking at developing a Shopify app. So that's kind of trying to get my hands dirty in that and figure out how to do it, because I haven't developed an app before. And, I think the only way to learn something is to do it. So my brother is a developer, and I'm going to work with him on a close basis and try to get an app going. Other than that, I think I've been really interested in blockchain. It is a hype word, I understand, but I think there is some good that can come out of blockchain. Yeah. It's been this huge hype, in my opinion, but maybe it's similar to the 2000s, where there's this big kind of bubbly time with the internet, just like 2020, 2022, 2021 was with crypto and blockchain. And it's going to die down for sure, in my opinion. But I think the fundamentals of it is there. It's strong. It's, revolutionary, it might be a word, but I think it could do good for the world. And so, I've been kind of exploring that more seriously, and want to do a project in that and kind of get my hands dirty and understand like what it's all about. And if there's any applications that are not this kind of financial world, because I don't know much about the financial world, and I don't think I could start my own exchange or anything like that. But I think if it was more in the commerce world where I'm in, I would love to take advantage of the technology and see what we could do there.
I love it. Yeah. Keep doing great things, man. So awesome.
Building.
One more question. For you, what does it mean to live a rich life?
Doing what you want.
So good.
I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday, I think, and it was like, I feel so lucky that I get to wake up and come to my desk and literally do what I want and build what I want and learn what I want and decide what to do and do it. And I think that freedom is not a lot of people have it. And it's something that I kind of took for granted a little bit before, but now it's like, wow, I couldn't see myself going and working for someone and kind of doing what they're asking me to do. It's just that freedom is not, you can't replicate it. And I think that's success, or that's just, it makes you feel good and really get into the work too. And I wouldn't take it any other way, I don't think.
Dude, so good. I really appreciate you being here, sharing your journey. If people want to get a hold of you or reach out, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn, Andy Burde, Burde. I'm building another business right now, and I'll be sharing it on LinkedIn. But that would be it for now.
Dude, so good. Congratulations on your journey, and keep building cool stuff. And keep in touch so we can keep watching.
Yes.
All right, man.
Ashish.
Thank you, brother. Be well, okay?
Hi, you too. Thank you.